Hello and welcome to another episode of the Digital India Summit 2020, Enabling the New Normal, co-presented by Tata Consultancy Services and banking partner Union Bank of India. Now in its sixth edition, the summit was envisioned with the purpose to accelerate India's digital transformation by defining an action plan for progress. This week, we're focusing on India Inc.'s digitization adoption. Even before the coronavirus pandemic hit us, companies were moving rapidly down the Industry 4.0 track. But like everything else that it has disrupted, the pandemic has had an impact on India Inc.'s adoption of Industry 4.0 as well. Our next panel discussion will look at whether companies have increased their adoption of IoT, AI, ML, robotics and remote connectivity in their processes, or has Industry 4.0 been relegated to the bottom of the management's to-do list. Times Network's Ajaya Sharma is in conversation with Partha Iyengar, VP and Gartner Fellow in Gartner's CEO Research Team, Arnab Basu, Partner and Joint Leader, Technology Consulting, PwC India, and Ujjwal Mathur, VP and Country Head, TCS.
Hello and welcome. You're watching the Digital India Summit of the Times Network, Enabling the New Normal. We have three very special guests on the show today to discuss transformation via technology, the digital transformation, and a lot of companies are navigating the business environment with the help of that. And what's the need of the hour right now? So three experts in the field are joining us right now. Mr. Partha Iyengar of Gartner, Arnab Basu, partner at PwC India, handling technology consulting, and Ujjwal Mathur of TCS. He's the VP and country head. Ujjwal, let me start with you. How are your observations been in the last 7-8 months? They say that say almost 5 years of digitization got compressed the world over in 8 months. What are your initial thoughts on the way corporates the world over, India in particular, in focus, are really adopting digital transformation?
Working from remote locations, or as we call it, secure borderless workspaces, has become an accepted new normal. Workforce and workspace management has gained tremendous importance, especially as and when the government rules changed during the lockdown process. Use of digital for safety and health has gained a lot of prominence. The use of digital payments has gone up many folds. Focus is on fast, reliant, and easy financial systems. Sensor-based systems, heavy data-based analytics to manage personalized consumer behavior and needs, IoT-based distribution and logistics systems to manage costs through monitoring routes, locations, and temperature. This makes tracking and tracing visible across the entire supply chain. So we are seeing a lot of rise in secure technologies like blockchain across the supply chain process. Another important phenomenon is tracking human behavior through use of sensors and wearables. The digital in citizen services for information and payments is very much grown in the use. Consumer billing in utilities using sensor technologies. And the biggest thing that has happened during the last few months is the collaboration across partner ecosystem. It has become the new norm of the day, as one entity cannot do everything and needs to integrate with the entire ecosystem. Education and assessments are some of the other things that have gone online for most of the cases, and so on and so forth. So that's what I think has happened, some of the things that have happened in the last few months.
Sure. Usually, we'll come to some of the points you made a little more in detail. Let's get in Gartner's view as well. Gartner, of course, can also get in a world view. What are their observations, the way things are taking shape, not only in India, but globally. But Partha, how did you see workforces, companies reimagine their workflows, adopt automation, the speed at which or ease at which they did it? How was technology leveraged in these times, or should be leveraged in these times, in your view?
So if I can start with an interesting data point, just a month ago, we published a global board of directors survey, and 69% of board directors have said that they are accelerating their digital business initiatives as a result of the pandemic. And it's not just as a result of the pandemic, but board members are using this as a catalyst to really prepare for uncertainty for a fairly long period. It's not just, okay, the pandemic will be done by early next year and then we go back to business as usual. They're really resetting what does that normal look like. And one facet of the normal is that various elements of the uncertainty are here with us to stay. So uncertainty around, will customer behavior go back to what it was pre-pandemic? Will employees continue in India, continue to be comfortable working from home? So even from a leadership perspective, will the leaders be able to scale, to change their mindset, etc., to really start, I hate to use this word, but I think it's appropriate in our culture, start trusting their employees that they are focused on the right outputs. And I think in terms of technology, that is really one big area from an inside out perspective where technology can play a big part. How do you start evaluating your employees on the output as opposed to a traditional management structure which is very input based? Are you here when I leave? Are you here when I come in the morning? I'm oversimplifying it, but our culture management structure has been very input based. In this pandemic, I think leadership is now forced to move more to an output based evaluation process, and there technology has a big role to play. And I think we shouldn't forget the cultural and the skilling, reskilling aspects in the whole digital transformation journey. I think Ujjwal did a great job of outlining some of the technology elements, marrying that with the cultural skills transformation that without that you cannot actually transform is a critical element of this process. And I think this is here with us for a long time. So we really do see companies significantly increasing their investments in digital business and digital business acceleration. In fact, in the same board of directors survey, the boards of directors tell us that they're increasing their IT budget allocation. I hesitate to call it IT because it's broader than IT. It's also broad technology. They're increasing that to 6.9% and actually reducing some of the more traditional areas of spend. So management to put its money where its mouth is. And now it's time for technology, IT, the cultural transformation, etc., to also take root.
Partha, very interesting data points you brought forward to the table. It's really nice to see that there's a complete change or shift of the organizations towards a result orientation and the way output is being mapped now. Also,
Right.
interesting points around customer engagement. So let me take that a leaf out of what your answer was and move forward to Arnab, who works very closely with so many different kind of companies across the country. Arnab, talk to us about how technology is being used now and the way its usage is going to engagement will only increase and get a change also in a way in order to understand customer needs on a more real-time basis, take feedback on more real-time basis, and customers, not only downstream customers but us upstream customers as well. How are companies really going about doing that in your view now?
So I think one of the things which we are seeing in the entire gamut of digital transformation is that it remains a top priority, but they are defining it differently. Customers are defining it differently to how we used to define it before. And these are slight shifts which are happening. So top priorities where they do plan to spend on our focus on during this digital transformations, increase of productivity, being better prepared for risks, being more sustainable. Those are much higher points than improving the tech infrastructure, for example, or cutting costs, right? And if you look at some of the other pieces which have come up, in their minds is, how do I respond to regulatory changes? How do I be agile enough to exploit opportunities for growth? A lot of customers are looking at, acquisition opportunities. So all of these are being, sort of into the overall digital transformation needs of the customer. And I think the other thing which we are seeing is that, it is about value for sure, right? But it is not only about better value, but also safer value. And what we are seeing is very traditional companies, as Partha was explaining, very, very traditional companies, which were, buying in a completely different way altogether. They're changing the nature of buying. They're changing the way they're looking at it. So, heavy equipment manufacturers are, focusing on, getting their entire piece online. And it's not just about creating a catalog only. It's also about looking at what is the experience you're giving, what is the persona of the buyer, right? If you look at a heavy equipment manufacturer, who is he selling to? He's selling it to a contractor, and maybe a contractor, real estate contractor in a village. The kind of ways in which you define the persona, the kind of ways in which you sort of give him the right experience, appeal to his right senses, those are becoming very, very critical. That's where we see a lot of the focus of digital transformations of today.
Right. Arnab, in fact, let's take that point forward with Ujjwal. The use of technology in more new age ways compared to how traditionally it was being used. Going forward, Ujjwal, what are your thoughts on how companies will go about embracing AI, embracing machine learning, artificial intelligence in their processes, IT versus OT, operational technology? How is the movement there happening? Uh, Talk to us about your experience and how do you see the way forward in that direction?
Technology will play a very decisive role as nations work hard to recover from the economic downturn and corporates and industries work overtime to retain their lost ground. New technology ideas will be needed in every aspect to boost consumer confidence and increase consumerism, manage operating models and thus costs. Communication, collaboration, and consent-based information sharing is the key aspect of driving organizational agility in understanding market and customer needs. It is important how we capture both structured and unstructured data and analyze it for valuable input for businesses. Profile, lifestyle, and location-based proactive customer offerings lead to the customer. Feedback collection and bot-based assistance guide the customer with enhanced experience and service. The whole aspect of supply chain, from forecasting, demand planning, sales and operation planning, constraint-based product planning, scheduling, warehouse, dispatching, inventory planning, all can be well integrated, offering complete real-time visibility to the company effectively using AI and IoT. AI and IoT is enabling digital factory readiness, safe, secured factory operations, and safety of workforce. While operational technology is about control and safety systems and industrial process assets, IT or information technology is about business and enterprise systems that store, process, and deliver information. The line between them is slowly blurring because of the dependency of one on the other for running business operations, making strategic business decisions, and keeping the plant secure. If this IoT and OT is disconnected, then the plant will either end up with extra stock of spares or may risk having a shutdown. We call it as MFDM or Machine First Delivery Model framework, which is being applied for different industry segments. The intensive workflow-based systems are being reimagined in this model.
Partha, digital transformation also brings scalability, new solutions, processes they can cater to and work around much larger scope of people and clients. But this also requires reskilling of workforces at various levels. Give us some
Yeah.
feedback about surveys you may have conducted or interactions you may have had with clients globally on how that is actually happening, and it will eventually help companies build scale as well.
So one of the interesting things that's emerging again with the digital acceleration we are seeing globally is the roles and the responsibilities internally are changing faster than people's ability to adapt. So one facet of this is the change management, and in our research we talk about change leadership before change management, which is how do you create an environment that facilitates that change. Once you create that environment, then you need to get to the reskilling part. If you tell one of your employees that you need to do something very differently, but you don't equip them with the new skills, etc., that's needed, there's loss of morale, loss of productivity. You're actually not doing the right thing by your employees. In that, one of the areas of research that is gaining a lot of interest from our clients globally and in India is this concept of agile learning. This concept of just-in-time learning has kind of been there in the fringes for some time now, but this whole notion of agile learning, where a systemic shift to it, you don't have a career for life, you have a role you may do for the next 6 months. If the business needs change, if the skills required change, are you able to adapt very quickly to those new requirements? What will the company do to help you with that adaptation process? What do you need to do to help yourself with that adaptation process to stay relevant? All of that is really centered around the new concept of learning, of which just-in-time learning is a part, but a fairly small part. It's a strong mindset shift in how HR looks at career maps, how senior leaders look at um, uh, you know um, degree-based roles, and really start pivoting to skills-based roles. Most large companies have this notion that, in order to apply you need a minimum bachelor's degree. Even that fundamental bedrock of how recruitment is being done is starting to shift, where they say if you have the right skills, and many of these skills are actually now soft skills. Are you comfortable with ambiguity? Are you comfortable negotiating? Are you comfortable? Do you have good communication skills? And unfortunately, from an Indian perspective, this is where we have historically been the weakest in the soft skills. But I'm very encouraged with the younger generation coming in, where I see the hunger. I see, even if you look at a small statistic, that the rise in IIT grads, or tier one college grads, for example, starting their, not taking up a job, but jumping into a startup or creating their own startup. These are all great signs for the future of India, and I think it just needs to happen faster. And that is going to be fundamental to success in the future.
Right. Arab, let's take closing comments. So let me start with you. Out of the viewers who are watching our program, many of them companies from various backgrounds and sectors who are keen in going much more deeper, adopting digital transformation much more seriously. What would your one message be to them on how they can do that smoothly?
I will take it in two parts, and one I would probably connect with what Partha just said, that one part of the transformation, and when you look at the future of business, is how do you look at the future of the workplace and the future of the workforce? Because if you are doing a digital transformation, you need the workforce to be ready for it. And it is, of course, there is a lot of reskilling, but are we teaching the right things to them? Our curriculum is very much functional and domain driven, right? So you go to an IIM and you get an MBA in finance, MBA in, uh, marketing, MBA in strategy, right? But, when we look at today's world, there is the functional and domain, and they will always remain relevant. We are not saying that they will become irrelevant. But if you look at leadership, if you look at people's understanding of digital and technology, if you look at people's understanding of culture, mindset shifts, if you look at things like networking and relationship in this virtual world, each of these have different strategic themes coming out of it, in terms of, how do you look at leadership, how do you look at, and each of those could mean very, very differently to very, very different people. I would say in demand from different organizations. And unless we can look at that big picture, unless we can reframe the problem statement, unless we can build resilient organizations, unless we can be leaders in crisis, unless we show mental courage to challenge some of the status quo, it is very difficult in today's world, right? So that's one part of it. The other part is, the general challenge around transformation in terms of the cognitive dissonance it drives, the fact that any kind of digital transformation, you're looking at 12-month, 18-month programs. How do I look at that delayed gratification piece and say that, okay, no, I want to, probably make it into bite-sized things which can come and hit my customers, and I can give them, small, benefits going forward. The entire thing around, how do I look at an emotional, reaction to a transformation? Those are becoming very, very critical. And I think those would need to be handled in the right sense.
Ujjwal, I'll let you have the last word. What would your message to the managers across the companies would be? Who would be implementing about these suggestions coming in from experts like you?
The organizations need to be agile, resilient, adaptable, and purpose-driven. There's no doubt to the fact that digitization has to be done. The clear understanding of purpose is critical. So what we say are the 4 pillars of Business 4.0 need to be utilized, which are mass personalization, leveraging the ecosystems, embracing risks, and thus creating an exponential value for the customer. COVID has shown us that we can deliver projects from anywhere, even our homes. At TCS, we have delivered several large programs from secure, borderless workspaces, and also kept many essential services running in the country.
All right, gentlemen, all three of you, thanks so much for joining us on the show today. It was a very educative interaction with all three of you, and I'm sure our viewers and managers of various companies across the country who are actually looking in the direction are involved in that direction of digital transformation of their companies because of the changing world and the changing dynamics brought about upon us due to COVID, will be able to do it much more smoothly. Thank you so much, Partha, Ujjwal, and Arnab, for joining us today.
That brings us to the close of this interesting discussion here at Times Network's Digital India Summit 2020, Enabling the New Normal, co-presented by Tata Consultancy Services and banking partner Union Bank of India. Thank you so much for watching.